Hello everyone, Theophilus here. Welcome back to my channel. And quick side note, you can let me know how you think the lighting looks. Didn't wear the cap today. I usually don't try to care about things like my hair that much, but you can let me know what you think. So, this video will likely be called that hope is a masculine requirement, meaning it's necessary and it's vital. Now, I'm going to explain in depth what I believe hope to be and what I believe it not to be. Right? We often talk about discipline. We often talk about enduring hardship. We often talk about masculinity. But I believe that hope is a very masculine thing to have and to keep and to understand. And it's very purposeful, practical, and useful in your everyday life. Right? So, I've endured a lot of hardship. Not as much as some people. Some people have endured like maybe 30 times as much hardship as I have. But just as a young man, without much of a masculine like father figure like there in my life, role model. Not that I didn't have any kind of father figures, but I didn't have a model in front of me of what clearly explain and define to me and to be an express image of what masculinity is to me. Right? Hope it makes sense what I'm saying. I had to grow up and learn about masculinity by myself. Through bearing hardship, through trial, toil, frustration, tribulation. I had to learn what masculinity is as I was on my self-development journey, as I started to try to get into self-development when I was about 17 or 18. I'm 24 now. So it's been about 6 years. And up until recently, I didn't really understand like the times when I've made progress. What was there the whole time? Like, what was keeping me in my mind? What was keeping me sane and sound and helping me and giving me that, you could say, motivation, like internal motivation to keep pushing? I'm not talking about the motivation where you're just relying on how you feel. Though hope can give good feelings, it's a very deep psychological frame of mind. I don't believe it's just a feminine thing. Some people think that hope is like the blind optimism of just like, oh, everything's gonna be okay. And that is a hope, but I would argue that's more of like a false hope. That's a pretentious, unfounded, almost delusional hope. Everything's gonna be okay. But not any like logical foundation. I'm talking about masculine hope, logical hope, reasonable hope, you know? You can I'm not gonna go into I can make this a very, very long video, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna try not to do that. Just bear with me. Y'all can also let me know how well you think I'm explaining things, articulating things, if I can make things longer, shorter points, faster points, more profound, and more deeply explained talking points. You can just let me know how you feel about all that or how you think about all that. What you think. But yeah, in the midst of all the hardship I've borne and the things that I've learned, it was hope that kept me going the whole time. And I've like despised it because, you grew up in like maybe like a more old-fashioned kind of way, or say like back in the past, like 50 years, 100 years even. There was like this sense of like hope of being more like maybe like spiritual, or like hope of being like more of a like, it's like, oh, I hope we can change the future, or like everything's gonna be all fine, and dandy, like cotton candy, everything's gonna be okay, just chill out, don't worry. And it's almost like there was a lack of like logic sometimes when in describing hope. It's where hope is more like it's more like you're hoping for good, you're hoping for change, but there's not like logic behind it. You need hope because I don't think discipline just survives like in like a vacuum, if that makes sense, you know. And this is very important that I'm about to say, because you can tell me whatever you think about what I'm about to say, but I like men like Andrew Tate. I like hearing what he has to say. I like, despite like the funny things he says that blow up on social media, the jokes that blow up and outrage masses of people intentionally, by the way. Look at the deep, core, logical things that he says. But a lot of people think that he's like kind of like just like beating me over the head, like, oh, like you're useless, you're worthless, you're failing your bloodline, you're a failure. And he does do that. And it is pretty harsh. I was able to be more logical about what he was saying. It's like logically acknowledging it as a fact and not just like getting offended at what he's saying. Because in one sense, from 17, 18, 19, 20, perhaps, there were a lot of ways I really was failing. Miserably. I was making loads of mistakes. I don't want to go that far into it. But even if you look at what he says now, that's more like refined. One thing maybe even he's missing out on really, really communicating deeply is that men really need hope. We need belief. And yes, men that fail, often laziness is one of the reasons. I can be lazy. I grew up practicing escapism pretty much all day. From a little child, I just sat in front of the TV screen. I think it was Sesame Street or Care Bears, whatever I was watching. Big Red Dog, whatever I was watching, whatever kids show, whatever Disney, whatever I was looking at, and I'll just be looking at a screen, just not even there, just forgetting about my reality, right? Doctors thought I would be slow. I actually turned out to be maybe slightly above average intelligence, perhaps. And though I was smart and had potential, I was kind of lazy, right? Now, you gotta be careful, even when targeting something like laziness. Like, yes, a lot of people are lazy. Yes, I was lazy. But you gotta understand the depth of it, the root of it. I could take a religious example and say that, you can't just target someone's outward sins. You have to target the root of the reason why they're sinning, which is unbelief. Or like parenting. Why is your child just rebelling against you? Is it because they don't believe that you love them and that you were able to help and guide them and lead them? Right? You got to target the root of the problem. You can't just focus on what you're doing and what you're not doing. You have to target the root, what's going on deeply in the subconscious. Perhaps you could even say the heart, deeply in the mind, what's going on. And yes, people can be lazy. I can be lazy, absolutely. But if you just tell someone they're being lazy, that can help them, absolutely. But what would help them more is to help them understand why they're being lazy. Because often when people are lazy, they're not like conscious of it, or like they don't understand what they're doing. They're just doing it. A lot of times we can be lazy because not only do we lack structure and direction clearly in our mind, which is why people can like lollygag and wander around, but we have to understand that hopelessness and a victim mentality often contributes to laziness. I've done this a lot, arguably more than most people, because it's just the situation I was born into. In response to that, not just the situation, but my response to that, my logical assessment of what was happening, which was incorrect, is that, well, it's not looking good for me. Well, it's not looking hopeful for me. Well, I don't know if I can really make it out of this circumstance. I feel stuck. I feel trapped. Right? So most men don't just fail because they're lazy. That's not all there is to it. There's much more. There's much more depth. If you're just targeting the fact that someone's lazy, you're going to lose them. Yes, people can be lazy, but why? It's a real question. Right? Hope is not just blind optimism. It's a logical assessment and conclusion that hard work actually does pay off. I can diverge on a detour right quick, but I'm just going to make a small point. What's going on with young men in today's society? What's going on with the working force and people altogether in Western and the American society? What's going on? People are starting to come to the logical conclusion that my hard work does not pay off. People say, oh, young people are lazy. They're lazy. Well, 50 years ago, the belief, the American dream, whatever you want to call it, was that if I work hard, and I go to college, I get a career, and I just find a good job, I'll live a happy life. I'll get a wife, I'll get children, and the wife picket fence and all of that. I'll live a happy life. I'll end my days comfortably. I'll be able to have a retirement. I'll be able to be even a millionaire if I penny pinch and save my money right and invest it the right way. People back then had hope. They knew in their minds, my hard work will pay off. It was not uncertain to those people back then. You could say perhaps that's what gave them the internal motivation. Not the short burst of feeling good and feeling like doing the work, but internal motivation, that belief, that hope that created the discipline necessary. I would argue that's why people in the older generations were able to work so hard, because they actually had real, tangible hope that they could see with their eyes, that there was logical evidence to convince them of. Now is not so much the case. We're seeing it all around. I don't want to go that far into that, but that's an example I could use. So I could use a lot of examples. I could think about Alex Hormozy as well and all the hardships he went through. You could look at all kinds of people. You could look at sports players. I liked basketball growing up. You could look at sports players. Maybe not so much musicians, but on some level, yeah. I would think about like Alexander the Great or Napoleon Bonaparte. However you pronounce the last name. These were like normal men that had a deep, almost psychopathic level of self-belief and hope in their future. That if I am wise enough and strategic enough and honorable and valiant enough, my nation, the people that live with me, the people that look up to me, they will have hope. We will change our future. We will change the world. No, it was through like war and conquest, so not like the nicest thing exactly. Not the nicest way to go about hope, but you could see how far they went. Men almost conquered the world. Alexander the Great, arguably, when he conquered, I think, most of the known world, though he fell ill with disease and died, I think, when he was about 30. look at how much the man did, because he had that hope, that faith. I don't think this is just a fairy tale kind of hope. When it's real, when it's actually tangible and believable. Like you can see why hope is needed and why it's important and why it's useful and why it's going to profit you to continuously have it. The times when I've gotten down bad, thank God I haven't gotten like some other people. I didn't become like a drug addict, or I wasn't like selling myself to people in some kind of, whether some kind of slavery or some kind of terrible contract. There are people that have those kinds of circumstances. I'm not 30. I'm halfway to 30 from 18, which is 24. But I made some progress and I've learned a lot. That's mainly what I've learned in my mindset that's helping me. But the times I've been down, it was because I was hopeless. Hopeless, and I felt helpless. And I had a victim mentality, and in my mind I was thinking, there's no way out of this. There's no way out of this. There's nothing I can do. I can't change my circumstance. I'm a victim of my circumstance. I'm stuck. I'm trapped. I'm ensnared. I'm in trouble. There's nothing I can do. Hopelessness is what leads to the bad habits, in my personal opinion. In part, at least. Yeah, there are people at the top that are just doing all kinds of bad habits. Arguably, they're hopeless as well, to think that they can be content with their lives. Because they probably lost purpose and meaning in why they do the things that they do. That's probably why they go off the deep end. No more hope. It's hopeless. Now I'm rich and I'm just way more miserable. Because I have no hope. I have no reason. I have no meaning. Just endless, pointless pleasure that's killing me on the inside. And if I make it there, someone please remind me to keep hope and vision and purpose. That I don't be one of those people. Scrolling aimlessly. If you use the app TikTok, the app designed to teach you how to waste time, be resentful, numb, and slowly, passively, quietly giving up. Because there's no reason to endure. A lot of people were saying, why can't I be disciplined? Why can't I resist the temptation to do all kinds of terrible habits? Why do I keep going and spiraling down and ruminating and doing all this? Why? The clear answer is because you're hopeless. You don't have hope. You don't have meaning. If I was a drug addict and I didn't see a way out, it's understandable to know why I would never stop doing drugs. It's very logical. It makes a lot of sense, actually, because you don't believe that there's a way out. You don't believe there's a future, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's nothing to hope for. Look at all throughout history, even my people, black people, how we endured all this stuff that happened to us. I don't want to go there. I don't plan to go there and make this that kind of a political thing. Not really. I already went a little bit into that and I don't want to go further. But these people had some hope. Some tremendous, extraordinary, God-given hope that they could change their future and their circumstance. And we're not perfect, but we're doing a lot better. A lot better. And vision gives suffering like meaning. There was this rapper. Even though he's a rapper, there's still something you can get out of it. The rapper DMX, he died. But there's a song, I think, maybe called Slippin' with no G. He said, to live is to struggle. To survive is to find meaning in the struggle. Wonderful. That's when he made the song, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. I got to get up. Back on my feet so I can tear shit up. I like that. I like that. I like that. I listen to music sometimes. I'll admit, I still do sometimes, but I often go days without doing it. I went on dopamine detox, went a whole week without doing it, like, at all. But there's some good that it can do. It gives the pain meaning, man. It gives it a reason to live. Yeah. Hope isn't just pretending things will be easy. It's believing that the work is worth doing. Why do most people never get on to some form of self-development? Because they don't think it's worth all the work. They don't think it's worth it. They think it's better to be in their current existence, which might be a very miserable existence, and to endure a little bit, maybe a little bit more misery, a little bit more hardship for monumental success and outcome. Man, hope is a very masculine imperative. A man has to hope for his family. Say I'm wrong. Say that I am wrong. I could get into, could go deeper into that. Men have always been the sacrifice of society. Men have always been the problem solvers, the laborers, the sacrifice, the easily disposable gender. Some may think men are the problem. Perhaps mankind is the problem as a whole, male and female. That's arguable. But most men, have not had easy lives. It's depending on, of course, the culture and things like that. Of course, there were better societies. But, why are men always just throwing themselves into the fire? All throughout human history. I personally believe that human history is about 6,000 years old. You can believe it's twice as long or however long. If you believe that we were cavemen some million years ago, it's fine. Believe what you want. But why have we always just endured so much hardship? Or other animals. Look at the species that have survived. I think it's possible that we had things like an ice age in maybe certain parts of the world. I think it's possible. I know there's certainly times of extreme cold. That's even biblical if you're a Christian. That's there. You gotta find it, but it's in there. I believe. I can be wrong about that. I'm willing to be corrected. But yeah, look at what men have always endured. 18-year-old kid that's gonna go die in a ditch. Why is he gonna do that? Man that has to break his back in labor to provide for his family. Why would he do that? women that have endured so much for their children. That's one thing I could talk about more, is the labor that women can do, specifically in childbearing. I don't think it should just be shitted on like it's just some terrible thing. It is like the most honorable duty a human being could do. Raise up the next generation. Without people that are going to raise up the next generation, what we have? Honestly, do we even have a future? Like, let's be honest. Like, why would a woman, like, essentially sacrifice the rest of her life, endure all this pain, all this suffering for, like, at least 10 years? At least 10 years. Even in the prime of her youth? This is you could even say this is a message for women that see, you know, bearing children is oppression, and being home with their children is as a cage and a trap. Why would a woman do that? There's a question. Why would a woman do that? I'm not even gonna argue if it is or isn't, but why would a woman do that? For her future, for her bloodline, for the next generation. She'll raise up successful people that will be a continuation of her legacy. Offspring. Hope for them. Belief for them. That she'll see them and look back in her old age and smile and think about all the hardships she's endured, all the trial and the tribulation, and the sorrows and the pain. And she would look back and smile with brilliant joy. I don't know if y'all ever seen like a successful grandmother. Those are some happy people. But a lot of women nowadays don't think that the work and the labor is worth it. Though that's a little bit different than self-development, you know. It arguably is self-development. Because, you know, the kind of labor and the maturity that it takes, the wisdom, the purpose, it arguably is self-development. Though, of course, we live in a day and age where, you know, women have to be a little bit wiser about what they do with their time and with their energy and with their youth. I do believe that women should be their best selves, absolutely. They should do all that they can to be the best them that they can be. Their body, their mind, the path they take in life, what they do, who they partner with. I believe that because some of the mask is being taken off, and we're seeing that, look, men are not sinlessly perfect angels, nor are women. We're all pretty jacked up. We all got some messed up stuff about us. We've all got some problems. Now that we're like seeing this, now we have to step back and think, okay, now what are we going to do in response to this? I still think the answer is self-development. I still think the answer is being the best you could be. I still think the answer is self-mastery. Discovering, finding yourself, and walking in the purpose that you were meant to walk in. That's the only way you're going to make it. In my personal opinion. Hope isn't pretending things will be easy. It's believing that the work is worth doing. Nice. If this message resonates with you, and you feel there's meaning, there's purpose, there's some goodness, there's a little bit of hope to keep going, so you're not alone. You are definitely not alone. They're right here with me, this 24-year-old man who might be seen as low status in my bedroom recording videos with knowledge that most people don't just have anymore. or don't have currently. I am building a brand. I'm seeking to build a legacy for myself. I'm seeking to build something greater for myself. And you can be with me in this journey. Even if you disagree with half of what I say, you can be with me in this journey. I have an online community as well, where I'm seeking to just allow free engagement, freedom of speech within, I guess, my laws, you could say, my control, if you think, my supervision. I'll try to take a more hands-off approach, maybe post to post, see who responds, not critique, not do any of that. As long as we're on topic, as long as we're talking about self-development, as long as we're not being disrespectful, just hating other people, and can respectfully disagree, feel free to join. Link will be in the description. But thank y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Have a great day.